No,
I absolutely
talking about it. Let me say something.
And welcome back. Well, earlier this month, the World Have Your Say team and I were in Glasgow for a special edition of our radio programme. It was an hour long, but we thought we'd share with you the best bits. So as Scotland prepares for a vote on independence in just a few months' time, we were discussing identity. It's a huge issue for Scots, but also for the city's thriving Arab community. And I was joined by two colleagues, one from BBC Arabic and another from Radio Scotland. And we looked at whether you can be Scottish and anything else.
I'm John Beattie, used to play rugby for Scotland, born in Borneo, parents were Irish and with a bit of South African in me. Welcome along, it's great to have you here.
And I'm Sam Farah from BBC Arabic. After decades of living outside of the Arab world, today's discussion is very relevant to me as well.
So I wonder, just looking around this room, if you could fire a few words at me of how you identify yourselves. So who wants to give me a word first?
British Scottish.
Syrian Scottish.
Scottish Glaswegian.
Arab Scottish.
Scottish.
You could tell, you could tell.
Scottish Egyptian.
Citizen of the universe.
Scottish Arab.
Scottish and certainly not British.
I guess I would call myself British English. John's already described himself. Sam?
It's incredibly hard. As I said, my son asked me the same question before I came here. Are you British Lebanese or Lebanese British? And I think, does it matter? Does it matter whether we put British first or Arab first?
I'm a human being. Nonetheless, I feel British, yes, but my roots are Palestinian, Arab. So again, I don't wake up in the morning and decide that I'm British today or Palestinian tomorrow. I am me. And, you know, I feel that having both more than one side of my identity is actually enriching my life.
Can I just ask if it's important to put those things in order?
Not at all.
My name's Amal. I'm Lebanese Canadian. I actually disagree with that completely. I think that there's a huge amount of we have to kind of understand what we're communicating when we put these things in these categories.
I agree to some extent, but as a Palestinian, I ought to know how much my identity as a Palestinian has been denied. After all, even Britain is responsible for a lot that has happened in Palestine. But nonetheless, I don't have any problem with asserting myself as a British, Palestinian, Arab.
I totally agree with what you're saying in that respect. I think that this is part of it is that, I mean, my parents raised me to sort of assert my Canadianness because as far as they were concerned, they'd worked very hard to give me access to the citizenship and that they had, you know, so there's, but that makes it more important to assert those things, to say I am allowed to be Canadian, I have the right to be Canadian, but that doesn't elide or obscure the fact that I'm also of Lebanese heritage.
Fatah Hamid, Scottish Iraqi Society. I'm Iraqi born, Scottish. I've been here, you said Israeli, the Arab established here for the past 20 years. Actually, no, I've been here 34 years.
I stand corrected.
I did not mean it that way.
No, I know, teasing.
But I feel I am Iraqi because I was born in Iraq. I have loyalty to both countries. I have loyalty to Scotland because it's my home. I feel proud to be Scottish.
I am fully integrated in the Scottish culture, and yet I know friends who are living in a bubble of Arab culture. They don't go out, they don't mix with friends, they don't work with Scottish people. They are really living in a world of their own that's completely alien to the culture that we live in.
Why? Why are they living like that?
I think they have that comfort zone. Maybe they have experienced some racism in the past that they feel, you know, the only way that to protect themselves from it is to isolate themselves from that racist element of society. I was lucky enough to live here for 30 years in Scotland without coming at all with, you know, face to face with racism.
I just want to talk about being an Arab, being a Scottish at the same time.
Sure.
I think there is a problem with the Arab youth thinking if you can't share your culture, you know, as Shamsuddin said, you can't share your culture beliefs or your religious beliefs, and feeling that there is a barrier between you as an Arab youth, as a Scottish Arab youth, and the Scottish.
Give me some barriers. People listening, what are these barriers that you talk about?
I think first of all, religious barriers. For example, like
people don't believe what you believe.
Yeah, a lot of the times, like as Muslims, we don't drink,
right.
And this is a Scottish culture thing that you drink a lot and you go party and stuff. But as a Muslim, you don't do these things. So what we thought about is we need to integrate the Scottish youth with the Arab youth with the Scottish youth, and we thought that football is a very, very important element of doing this. It's a worldwide language. So we made a team, and on purpose we named it the Scottish Arab Youth Football Club, So we're Scottish, but at the same time we're Arab, so we didn't lose our identity. And through football, we've been playing for over a year now. And in our team, we have Arabs from 12 different countries, and we have 27 different countries in our team. So a lot of friendship and a lot of the culture barriers have been broken through football.
How much of the drinking culture is an issue in Scotland as a barrier?
I lived here 34 years. Not even one. I've got so many Scottish friends. I was a student in the university. The drinking culture wasn't ever at all a problem for me. People know that I don't drink, never touched it. They bring me Coke.
The Arab people that I have known, I've always been very hospitable, very honest, upright, straightforward people, and actually got a good sense of humour. You've got to add that. That is very important. You meet somebody, a bit of humour, it's terrific.
Hi, I feel I'm very much Scottish. I don't feel that I've got any British identity whatsoever. Even after living in England for more than 10 years, I was always recognised as Scottish Tam. I feel anybody at all that comes to Scotland and makes home of Scotland as part of their society, then great.
Can I ask if it's a zero-sum question? Does it mean if you become more Scottish that you become less Arab? Does it have to mean that necessarily?
No, not at all.
Does anybody feel that this is the case?
Hi, my name is Shamsuddin. I believe identification is an individual thing, and I don't believe in culture personally. I think culture is built around beliefs, and I think if you're comfortable with your beliefs, for example, your religion, and you're comfortable with that, and you'll be able to integrate. So me, as a young Muslim, I'm able to integrate in the community. I believe I take part in the community as much as anybody else because I am actually confident in my beliefs and I know my limits that I set to myself. Therefore, I don't feel left out and I don't feel discriminated against.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the question of what Scottishness and Arabness have in common, because I've being from Canada and coming here for school, I was living in Cornwall actually for 4 years, and leaving Cornwall to come to Scotland, I found that there was an openness and an ease of communication here that I felt was really lacking when I went to England. I felt that there was this kind of bizarre culture shock that I experienced in England that I didn't experience at all in Scotland, because I found in England that you sort of had to wait until people were about 5 pints in before you could have a sincere conversation, otherwise it's there's a kind of irony and sarcasm and guardedness.
I completely agree with you. My name's Hala, and obviously I'm a young Scottish Arab. I was born and bred in Glasgow, and obviously it makes me laugh talking about this Scottish culture or Arab culture. Glasgow has changed over the years. The culture has changed, and I think for a lot of second generation young Arabs, it's a bit of a conflict because the way their parents have brought them up is within this old Arabic culture, which they lived in 20 years ago, and it's going back to that living in the bubble. And if we, as young Arabs, were to go back to Arab countries, we wouldn't fit in there either.
I'm Scottish, I am British, I am an Arab, I am proud to be an Iraqi background. So there is no problem with identity. Although my son is born here, I think he's more Scottish than he feels he's more Scottish than any other. However, I think I just jumped what I was going to say. You mentioned about the Arab. We here share a lot of things, issues like health, education, employment, the cuts. We are as a part of the society in Scotland and all over Britain.
In the run-up to the referendum, I would say that one of the most fundamentally positive things to come out of the run-up of the debates on the run-up to the referendum is a kind of redefinition of what Scottishness is. It's not, we're not saying, or the Yes campaign and the independence supporters are not saying that, you know, this is a decision for Scots and thereby we have to define what a Scot is. It's a decision for Scotland and the people who make up Scotland. The people who make up Scotland are the essence of Scottishness, and that is quite simply everyone who chooses to live their life here.
Can I add another question? Do you feel that the referendum is going to help you to become more Scottish or less?
I feel more Scottish, actually.
Okay.
I believe it will make you just Scottish, and that's exactly what it is.
Why just Scottish? Why suddenly
Because
just Scottish?
You're not dependent on the overall picture.
I think independence will actually crystallize the Scottishness of ethnic groups, because at the moment that's very diluted with being British, and you don't know, are you Scottish, are you British, depends who you talk to. I think being a Scottish independent country will allow us to be more Scottish than we are now.
Thank you so much for being so welcoming and getting involved in our conversation. Some highlights there from a special World Have Your Say earlier this month from Glasgow, and we were talking about identity. Well, that's all from us for now. In just over 2 hours' time, you can listen to our radio edition on the BBC World Service. They're going to be discussing what's the most watched video on the BBC News website today, that of a deaf woman hearing for the first time thanks to an implant. It's incredible, made us all well up in the office earlier today. Well, thank you so much for watching the programme. I'll speak to you again at the same time next week.
Let me say something.